After signing the last documents regarding the divorce, Jessica left the courthouse with a smile. She never thought that such a terrible event would give her so many positive emotions. All that was left was to change her passport and return to her maiden name. Today, she was smiling for the first time in a long while. It turned out that during the divorce proceedings, she received an inheritance from her mother. The woman had been ill for a long time, but even in her difficult hours and minutes, she tried to support her daughter. This tragedy gave a big impetus for Jessica's full acceptance that she needed a divorce. Her husband, John, did not support her at all. When everyone learned about her mother's illness, he immediately started talking about a renovation. "This room will be our bedroom. I've already decided to paint it an elegant olive color, but not everything. Only the wall where the bed will stand." He showed his wife a sketch. "John, are you out of your mind?" the girl exclaimed, almost crying. "You're in your right mind, but Mom is undergoing treatment, and you're already deciding how to dispose of her property. How disgusting you are to me!" It was from this conversation that the rift began in the girl's family. Jessica didn't attach much importance to it at first, but the man steadily tried to revive the renovation conversation once a week. Each time she tried to change the subject, but John stubbornly tried to continue it. For this reason, she cried more and more, visiting her mother every day. Her husband only sneered at this. Scandals began, and he went to stay with his mother, where he complained about his wife. It was difficult for Jessica to accept that her beloved treated the grief she was experiencing this way. And a month after such torments, after another scandal, Jessica said she wanted a divorce. "You're not serious," the man said to her face. "Yes, I'm very serious at the moment, and it seems to me that this is the most balanced decision I could make. You understand that because of such nonsense, you're destroying—" "It's already been destroyed for a long time, and if your mother's illness is nonsense to you, then I'm 100% right that I want to split up with you." John quite quickly gathered all his things. In 3 years of marriage, he had hardly accumulated any, as he considered that everything new should be bought for one's apartment, not a rented one. Jessica remained in the apartment, trying to figure out how she, with her small salary, would be able to continue renting this living space alone. It so happened that when the young couple chose a place to live, John insisted on the city center, where the cost of rental housing was very high. And of the two of them, only the man received a large salary. Jessica, working as a paramedic, gave her a deposit for the apartment without even checking its condition. She was sure there would be no complaints, but the woman said she would need to notify Jessica's husband since he had signed the contract. Luckily, John was not against it, and all the documents were quickly signed. But after a couple of months, he started calling the girl and demanding that she return the money the landlady had refunded. "John, I've already spent it. I had to buy medicine for my mom," she said. "I don't care about that at all," he shouted into the phone. "I gave the money, and now I want to get it back. You had no right to spend it on your whims." "But I told you it went for medicine." "I've said everything," he said, dropping the phone on the bed. Jessica began to cry. At that time, someone knocked softly on her bedroom door. The girl quickly wiped away her tears as she did not want her mother to see her in such a state. "Daughter," her mother entered the room. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, Mama, everything is fine. Why did you get out of bed? You were feeling weak this morning. Let me take you back if you want. I can read something to you." The woman nodded, and taking her daughter's hand, they went into the other bedroom. After settling her mother on the bed, Jessica settled down next to her and took her mother's favorite book, some historical novel that her mother reread almost every time. "Did John call you?" the woman suddenly asked. "Yes." "Give him the money so he'll leave you alone." "I don't have it anymore," the girl quietly admitted. "You wasted it on me for no reason. I told you I have money and we can buy whatever we want, and many of my medicines are given to me for free." "But I bought you imported ones, and they helped. Look, you've gotten better." Her mother nodded, but unfortunately, a miracle did not happen. And now Jessica was returning to a large, empty apartment. She even got herself a cat so she wouldn't be so lonely. However, now she was not alone. Her sister had come from another country, so the two of them could more easily get through all the difficulties. Jessica received a rather large inheritance, her mother's apartment, and a large sum that was sitting in the bank as a deposit. Her older sister Emily, living in Germany, often sent money to her mother, which she did not spend but saved. And when the time came to receive the inheritance, Emily was very surprised. She thought Jessica would be offended that she got nothing, but that did not happen. Emily said that some time ago she had discussed her mother's will with her and agreed with all its points. But John and his mother, for some reason, decided that they could grab something and therefore delayed the divorce. The man would bring notes to the court that he was ill and therefore missed the hearing, telling the judge that he could not live without Jessica and did not want a divorce. The whole process dragged on for almost a year. Putting down the paper that said Jessica was officially divorced, she quickly dialed her sister's number. "It's over. I'm free. You can come get me." "Of course, I'm right nearby, standing outside the courthouse. I'll be there in 5 minutes," her sister replied. The girl sat down on a bench near the building and began reading the news on her phone. She did not even notice when her former mother-in-law approached her. Sandra had to cough several times to attract the girl's attention. "I could hear you from the first time," Jessica said, locking her phone. "Well done," the woman said, standing with a displeased face. Her graphically black eyebrows were raised high and her lips with burgundy lipstick were pursed, so that a layer of lipstick had already spilled out of the contour. "What do you need?" Jessica shrugged. "What do you mean?" The girl did not quite understand the question. "My son provided for you, cherished you, carried you in his arms, and you are such a—" The woman did not finish the sentence. "What am I?" Emily intervened in the conversation, who had just arrived and, not seeing her sister, decided to look for her. Sandra slowly turned her head towards the girl who had approached and looked her up and down, giving her a contemptuous look. "She knows herself," the former mother-in-law hissed. "But I don't know," her sister insisted. "Tell me what my sister is like." "Jessica, let's not." Emily took her bag and was about to leave. "We'll discuss it further with you," the former mother-in-law said, as if threatening, grabbing her by the arm. "You and John haven't decided what you'll do with the apartment yet." Jessica decided not to answer anything. After all, the former husband's and his mother's dreams about all of the girl's inheritance had sunk with her, and she, if she wished, could bequeath it all to anyone she wanted. "Jessica, let go of this woman." Emily grabbed her sister's hand and dragged her to the parked car, knowing her sister's character. Jessica understood that a little more, and her sister would pounce on this woman and not leave a dry spot. "Did you hear what she said to you?" Emily was indignant as she started the car. "I heard," Jessica sighed heavily. "You wouldn't believe it, but they started dividing the apartment and making plans even before receiving the inheritance. What a nightmare! How can you profit from someone else's grief? Mom was right when she persuaded you to think carefully about this marriage. Your John isn't worth a dime. If I saw him, I would spit in his face." Jessica turned to the window and thought. When she introduced John to her mother, she immediately said that she didn't like the man. He was over 30 and still lived with his mother, despite already being divorced. Her mother was also bothered by his silly jokes and constant plans for something unrealizable. Over the years, John had invested in dubious businesses several times, but each time he lost everything. Jessica did not pay attention to this because it did not affect their budget. But her mother told her that an adequate man would not waste money on all sorts of nonsense, but would think about the family and its well-being. John also loved to live large and rarely saved any money for a rainy day. He also believed that buying your own home at that time was completely unnecessary, since it was better to rent an apartment for pennies all your life than pay large sums for a mortgage. Or even better, if an apartment came from some relative. Yes, her mother was right about everything. Jessica should not have married him, but the girl was too young when she met him. The 12-year age difference with her husband made itself felt. Jessica thought that if a man was older, he was wiser, but how wrong she was. "What did they even want from you?" her sister interrupted Jessica's thoughts. "The apartment," the girl answered briefly. They started making plans before the divorce." Emily swore heartily. She had seen John only once, at the very wedding. The girl rarely came to the country, so she did not know much about her sister's personal life. And on the phone, Jessica did not like to discuss such things. She could sometimes write the main news or rarely confide in her mother. The girl rarely talked about disagreements and quarrels in the family. "Do you have to go to work today?" Emily decided to change the subject. "No, tomorrow night. Today I'm off." Jessica had no desire to go anywhere, but seeing her sister's determination, she understood that she could not get out of it. She was already prepared for her sister to invite her to a restaurant or club. But Emily decided to do something else. "So, Mom once told me that you had a little dog," she sighed sadly. Backy, a small toy terrier, had been Jessica's long-standing dream. And having saved a decent amount, Jessica bought herself a friend while living with her husband. But during the divorce, he decided to take the dog with him, since his wife worked days and nights and could not properly care for the animal. Jessica missed this cute pup very much. The last time she saw him was a month ago when John was going on vacation with his new girlfriend. Jessica took Backy home to look after him. He stayed with John, although what am I asking? Of course, he convinced you that you didn't need a dog. The girl cried softly. She knew that over the few years of this unhappy marriage, her husband had turned her into a real whiner and constantly convinced her that Jessica was good for nothing, and she believed him. "Gather up your snot," Emily stated resolutely. "How long will it take him to get home?" "Most likely he'll take his mother home first, and then go to his place." "What do you want to do?" the girl asked in bewilderment. "We'll take your dog. Do you have the documents for the dog?" "Yes, but John took the passport and vaccination card." "But I have the purchase agreement, so by the documents the dog is yours, and you have the full right to take it back. But how will I take care of her? With this job, I won't be able to look after her properly," Jessica protested. "That's what he convinced you of. Complete nonsense. You have a small dog that can be walked once a day, and you managed to do that. Jessica, we're taking her. At least your cat won't be bored." At these words, the girl even cheered up. In her mind, she constructed a plan of how she and her sister would break into John's apartment, steal the dog under the screams of his new girlfriend, and safely drive away. "Come on, tell me the address," she said, giving the directions. Jessica looked at the road with shining eyes. Next to such a sister, she began to feel much better. It was as if a second wind was opening up in her. "Emily, you'll tell me what important business you were handling here all this time, won't you?" The girl sighed mysteriously. "Remember I once said that I was communicating with a German man?" Jessica nodded her head. "Well, we got married, and I was sorting out documents here." Emily went into the corridor and took out her new passport from her purse. Jessica could not believe it, and when she saw the documents and the last name that was difficult to pronounce, she said, "Let's drink to two important events in our lives." Her sister suggested, "Let's drink to the fact that you finally divorced that blockhead, and let's drink to me marrying another blockhead." The girl laughed, and they clinked glasses. The evening flew by quickly, and the sisters happily went to bed. The next morning, Emily suggested going shopping to look for new furniture. The girl kept trying to persuade her sister to start renovating because the apartment reminded her of difficult times. Jessica completely agreed because her sister was right. She needed to change everything in her life for a white streak to begin. In the evening, she was getting ready for work. Emily stayed home to pack her things. The girl was supposed to leave in 3 days, so she decided to start packing in advance so as not to forget anything in a rush. Moreover, the sister wanted to stop by her aunt's place for a day or two as well. Jessica even forgot about all her problems, because the evening and night turned out to be unexpectedly restless. There was one call after another. Receiving a new address, the girl tensed up. They had to go to her former mother-in-law's apartment. She did not want to see her at all, but there was nothing she could do. All the crews were busy. It was a routine call for high blood pressure. The mother-in-law did not say anything and even pretended not to know the girl, and Jessica immediately breathed a sigh of relief. But when all the procedures with the patient were done, Sandra decided to detain the girl for a while. Jessica nodded to the other doctors, indicating that everything was fine. Her colleagues understood whose place they had come to, so they decided it would be better not to get involved in the brewing conflict and waited for the girl near the ambulance. "Jessica," the former mother-in-law began in a honeyed voice, "we started our conversation on the wrong note." The girl was silent and simply watched to see what would happen next. The woman was alone at home, so Jessica was not afraid that the enraged elderly woman could do anything to her, except maybe insult and shout at her. In that case, she would file a complaint, and the girl would be deprived of her bonus. "You and my John lived together for a short time, but you had a good time together, didn't you?" Sandra tried to take the girl's hand, but she pulled it away. Jessica stepped towards the door so that, if anything, she could immediately leave. Realizing that she was scaring the girl, Sandra spread her hands to show that she would not do anything bad to her. "Okay, I understand you don't get hints." The woman's voice immediately changed to her usual one. "Let's do this. The apartment that you got is too big for you alone. You're lonely now. Do you understand?" "It has nothing to do with you." The girl cut her off. "I know you have no one. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken your little dog from John. So here's my proposal. You sell the apartment, and you and John split the money, and that way he buys himself a place and you buy one. And your mom left you money too, so you'll be able to buy something decent." At such a proposal, Jessica was dumbfounded and could not even move. She looked at her former mother-in-law with huge eyes and could not believe that this woman was proposing such a thing to her. "You've gone completely mad," the girl began, buttoning her coat. "You think I'm so stupid that I'll do what you and your son want? You've gone mad. I'm not selling anything. All the best to you and your son." Having said this, Jessica almost ran out of the apartment. She was shaking with shock. She thought that as soon as she signed the divorce papers, John and his mother would leave her alone. But, realizing that her property would not be divided during the divorce, they decided to put pressure on her from all angles. The girl didn't even look at the time. Only after leaving the elevator did she take out her phone and dial her ex-husband's number. In the first 2 calls, he was talking to someone on the phone. "Jessica, do you have any other business here?" the senior paramedic asked. Jessica nodded and started dialing John's number again. After a few rings, he picked up. "What do you want?" he asked, displeased. "It's what you want from me. You and your mother have completely lost your minds," she cried. "Don't shout, I already have a headache," the man answered wearily. "I understand that you've decided that my property is yours too. Why is your mother insisting on dividing it?" "She's right about everything. We lived well together. I spent a lot of money on you and gave you gifts. It's time for you to pay your debts." "I didn't think the gifts you gave me had to be returned." "Well, it will be done. And remember, the inheritance is only mine, and it's not for you to decide how I should dispose of it. I can sell it, rent it out, or give it to someone, and I can spend the money on whatever I want. There's not a penny for you." After saying this, the girl threw the phone in her coat pocket. The entire crew looked at her in surprise. Jessica, while talking, even forgot that she was now at work and all her colleagues were listening carefully. It became awkward. "Calm down," the senior paramedic supported her. "I've been through a divorce myself, and my mother-in-law tried to take my apartment away from me. You shouldn't let them manipulate you. You did the right thing. And now, getting into the car, the next call awaits us." Settling into her seat, Jessica began feverishly recalling what gifts her husband had given her over 3 years of marriage. Beautiful leather boots, a bag, a couple of gold rings, a new phone, and earrings. After listing everything, the girl wrote to her sister to find out if she was home. It turned out that the girl had changed her mind about going to her aunt's because everyone there was sick, and she didn't want to catch some kind of infection before her flight. The rest of Jessica's shift went well. In the morning, after returning home, the girl immediately gathered the things she had listed yesterday. Woken up by the noise, Emily came out into the living room. "What are you doing?" "He told me I have to return all the gifts from him. He hinted that, since we lived well together, he gave me little trinkets, and now I have to share." "What a nightmare!" her sister exclaimed. "Let me help you. I've almost got everything, just 2 things left." "Which ones?" "Gather yourself, we're going to the bank. I'll withdraw money. I need a new phone. This one, unfortunately." The girl turned the mobile phone in her hands. "I need to return it." With these words, she struck it on the floor several times, shattering the entire screen into pieces. Then she looked at it all with satisfaction and threw it into the gifted bag. What else did he demand? Her sister looked at all this in amazement. We went on vacation to the sea several times. Jessica understood that she could not return this gift. After thinking for a moment, she spat on it because in the end, he was with her and also vacationed there. That's it. Emily, get ready. We're going to throw this at his feet. Just a minute. I'll get dressed. Emily liked such a sister, resolute, severing all bridges to start a new life. And here the two sisters are sitting in the car and driving to take revenge on the ex. There was such a cheerful atmosphere that the girls wanted to sing songs and dance to John's place. Along the way, they stopped at the bank and then at a cell phone store. Jessica decided to change not only her phone, but also her number. Now her former mother-in-law or ex would not be able to call her to spoil her mood or insist again on dividing the property. Jessica decided not to call her ex-husband and inform him of her arrival. She knew when he went to work and would have just enough time to hand him the bag. Emily decided to stay in the car and observe. Jessica approached John's car and stood waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" he asked, seeing her. "I decided to return your gifts. You hinted at that to me yesterday." She put the bag on the hood of his car and smiled. She never thought that several years of life with a loved one could fit into a small woman's bag. "I hope we never see each other again," she said, starting to walk away towards her sister's car. The man stood shifting from foot to foot, uncomfortable in this situation, and Jessica just mocked him. She had never seen John so offended. She wanted to laugh, but all she did was go to the car where her sister was waiting for her. John took the little bag and threw it into the back seat of his car, then drove off to work. "And now where?" Emily asked spiritedly. "Home to sleep," the girl said, laughing. Subscribe to our channel and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.